Let's build news literacy to better live out the gospel. The print magazines and online articles are for them. The discipleship and teaching resources are for you. More at gwnews.com.
It's game on for the new U.S. president. Well, almost. Today, we're focusing on what's called the presidential transition period. Before Donald Trump's team takes the field on January 20th, some 4,000 federal employees must be retained or hired. Those are workers who serve, as they say, at the pleasure of the president. Well, 15 key cabinet positions are among the most important. So far, Trump seems to be focusing not just on talent, but especially on loyalty. Around 1,200 positions, including his cabinet-level players, will have to run the gauntlet of a Senate confirmation. Although, with Republicans controlling the chamber, that shouldn't be a problem for most. So, Bing, let's take a look at how Team Trump is shaping up. First up, it's Kristi Noem. The South Dakota governor is set to oversee America's immigration system through the Department of Homeland Security and will play an important part in cracking down on illegal border crossers.
Following Noem as Attorney General, it's Matt Gaetz to lead the Department of Justice.
Oh, man, we heard some boos from the crowd on that one. Now, that could be because this former representative is known for being contentious. But Bing, Trump may see him as the kind of hard hitter needed to clean up federal law enforcement agencies that have abused their power.
Maybe, but Gaetz seems to have acquired a lot of enemies, and he could be one player that even a Trump-friendly Senate decides to bump. And set to play defense, you might say, it's Pete Hegseth. Defense, as in Trump's choice to lead the Department of Defense.
Hegseth served in the National Guard, but some say the Fox News host lacks the necessary experience.
He's another one who might not survive a Senate grilling. To helm state, a familiar face, Florida Senator Marco Rubio.
As Secretary of State, he'd be an international traveler, trying to negotiate peace in Ukraine and the Middle East.
Overseeing matters such as the safety of the U.S. nuclear arsenal is the responsibility of the Secretary of Energy. And Trump's choice is Chris Wright, Chief Executive Officer of an oil fracking company.
All right, hang on here, Ben. Coming out to head the Department of Health and Human Services is, what's this, Robert F. Kennedy? The nephew of President John F. Kennedy would oversee massive agencies that regulate food and medicine, guard against diseases, and do medical research.
There's a lot of online chatter about him.
For sure, RFK has been outspoken, calling for the end of what he calls an epidemic of chronic disease in America.
Some senators are skeptical about his views on vaccines, raw milk, and chemicals, like fluoride in drinking water.
All right. Following RFK, a player everyone seems to like, he should sail right through the confirmation. North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum for the Department of the Interior. That's an agency that manages 500 million acres of public lands and coastal waters. And with only a few more positions to fill, here comes former Georgia Representative Doug Collins to lead the Veterans Affairs Department.
And former Wisconsin Representative Sean Duffy to lead the Department of Transportation. Duffy is a former reality TV star, a role that Trump can relate to, having gained his own fame on The Apprentice.
Now, we're still waiting to hear Trump's picks for agriculture, commerce, housing and urban development, labor, and possibly treasury. Now, before we sign off, Bing, one more important player, although not part of the cabinet. The White House press secretary faces tough reporters and speaks on behalf of the president on a daily basis. Filling that position will be someone who is not much older than our high school viewers. Caroline Levitt, at 27, will be the youngest ever to hold that job. But we'll talk more about the presidential transition right after the break. Change is not easy, and the transition of presidential powers is no exception. We've had a peek at key players as Team Trump suits up. But you might be surprised at how many other people are involved in transferring power to a new president. Many processes in current U.S. government reflect planning by the Founding Fathers, but they didn't exactly spell out the particulars of this important handoff. In fact, the process wasn't officially outlined until the Presidential Transition Act of 1963. Today, political teams begin planning for transition before their presidential candidates are even nominated. But the process really gets rolling when what's called the General Services Administration declares a likely winner. The GSA then provides the incoming president's staff with access, funding, and services like office facilities. Good thing, too, because the president-elect is immediately busy. Swamped, for example, with calls from international leaders. By law, the president-elect must also be kept informed about national security matters even before Inauguration Day. Meanwhile, his transition teams are studying up on the federal agencies for when the new president takes over. Much of this is behind the scenes. In public, there are events to attend, like the president-elect visiting the outgoing president at the White House. Now, that reminds us, even though he's considered to be now a lame duck, the sitting president is still busy too, pushing through his policy priorities while he still can. For example, President Biden has restricted oil drilling in the Arctic and is trying to lock in military aid for Ukraine. Now, it has to be admitted, America's transition of power hasn't always been pretty. Take the George W. Bush transition to office in 2000. Known to most as simply W, he beat President Bill Clinton's Vice President Albert Gore in a tight election. Gore conceded, but the outgoing White House staff was bitter. When the Bush staff entered the White House, they found vandalism, W keys removed from computer keyboards, nasty voicemail messages, desk drawers glued shut,
Oh, you gotta be kidding me.
and more. As you've seen this year, politics can be a rough game. But be encouraged by what America's 40th president said at his inauguration, because it still holds true.
To a few of us here today, this is a solemn and most momentous occasion. And yet in the history of our nation, it is a commonplace occurrence. The orderly transfer of authority as called for in the Constitution routinely takes place as it has for almost 2 centuries, and few of us stop to think how unique we really are. In the eyes of many in the world, this every 4-year ceremony we accept as normal is nothing less than a miracle.
If you like that story, do me a favor, tap the like and subscribe button below. And if you really liked it, check out the full show free for a week. Just head over to worldwatch.news/free video.